Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Health Made Simple show. I am here with our host, Dr. Bart Precourt, who has been a healthcare practitioner for over 20 years, practicing a range of modalities, including chiropractic, acupuncture, kinesiology, functional nutrition and supplementation, and lab testing, all out of his studio, Balance Health Studio, in Seagrove Beach, Florida, as well as virtually, like he just mentioned, on Zoom all around the world. He's also the founder of the Health Edge program, which is a cutting-edge health program for entrepreneurs and executives wanting to take their health to the next level. He's worked with celebrities and athletes all around the world. And you're going to kick us off with some clinical insights tonight before we dive into the alcohol conversation.
Yeah, so a couple interesting things. Again, I just want to share, and these clinical insights literally come from things that I, come across in clinic. So I want to share a couple of those. And the first one is really what I kind of talk about, what we focus on, and what we focus on expands. So I want to shed a little light on this. And this is so important, especially when it comes to health and trying to make some changes, especially if your changes require that you might have to look outside of what you're doing. So I have this young lady, she's in her 50s. Her name is Liz. She's in New Orleans. She's an entrepreneur, and she's in a restaurant business down in New Orleans. So might not be the healthiest of foods. I'm sure it's wonderful. Absolute sweetheart, been on a health journey. So it's been interesting. She comes up here, which is like a 4 or 5 hour drive, and kind of like refuels herself. She comes and dives deep into yoga, and she gets with our energy worker and spends half her day at Prema, and completely, it's almost like rehab when she comes to the beach. She'll spend a week, 2 weeks of time here, sometimes even longer. And then she goes back into her old environment and drops a lot of her good habits.
Oh, yes.
And along this whole time, because I see so many people from so many different states, I do the best I can to encourage them, hey, when you get back to Missouri, when you get back to California or Texas or Connecticut, whatever it's going to be, go find yourself a chiropractor, go get yourself a massage therapist, join some yoga. And in this particular scenario with Liz, she said, well, there's no other Dr. Bart's. And it's flattering. Yes, I get it. And quite frankly, I hear it all the time. Yet, and this is what I say all the time. So listen, yes, there is. In fact, there's Dr. Bart's out there, and there's better. But you have to be willing to look for them, which means you're going to have to look outside of what you've normally looked at. And I promise this to everyone out there. Maybe you haven't had luck with a certain massage therapist, a chiropractor, an acupuncturist, your medical doctor, whatever. Yet just around the corner, there's an amazing human being helping a lot of people. I know that for a fact. I was just down in Orlando, and I taught to a whole group of amazing men and women. There's some really, really good people out there, really bright and really willing to serve and help others. So here's the cool thing about this. So she eventually found her Dr. Bart, and, and I'm like so excited for her because she was willing to look outside of her box. Yeah. And then we had this other thing that she said, there's nowhere good to eat in New Orleans. Well, I know that's not true because my wife and I have visited New Orleans, and all we do is eat at the healthy places just like Prema, organic, cold pressed juices, all these amazing places. So I tell her, Liz, you just got to keep looking different places or ask around or figure it out. That's the big one. Be willing to figure it out, because somewhere the good stuff is. You just haven't looked in there. So her figuring it out this time was she found someone that juices and is too far away from them, but they were willing to deliver to her 3 days a week.
Nice.
And now she gets her cold pressed celery juice 3 days a week along with her other stuff. So an obstacle that we run into in health all the time is the availability. Yeah. Oh, there's no good food here. I don't have a great place to work out over here. Or, I hear it all, right? Or there's no Dr. Bart, whatever it may be. So the beauty is that Liz has broken down those walls. She is the old dog learning new tricks, which is beautiful. And now she's being able to have an environment at home that serves her just as well as the beach. So she doesn't have to leave her environment in order to be healthy. So that's clinical insight number one for those of you out there that might think your immediate surroundings, that maybe the town or the place that you live in doesn't have maybe the alternative healthcare provider. I tell you what, they're there though. There's somewhere you just haven't looked yet. So That's the beauty. So just keep looking. What you want and who you need is out there. So just keep looking and don't give up too easily, because what else is there if you don't have your health? All right. Number 2 is very interesting gentleman. His name is David. We'll call him David because his name is Dave. So that's why we'll call him that. Yeah. And he's in his 40s. So I'm not real good at making up names and mean like when they're not. So I won't give any last names. But anyways, Dave's been with me for a long time. And one of the best things I love about David is that he's very honest. And David and I have gone through a bunch of different things. It's super, skyrocketed type of cholesterol levels. And David has awful health habits. That's the reality. He's a successful entrepreneur, and he has really, really bad health habits, meaning that he drinks a lot, he eats like crap, he celebrates, he brings people out all the time. Yet the beauty is he doesn't hide it. He never tries to pretend. And that is unique. It really is unique. So he'll, Doc, I'm dying. He's like, if I'm not dying, I should be dead based on what I did in my body this past weekend. So today he finally came in, and, it's really easy for many of us to kind of just say to someone else when they say, how you doing? Oh, I'm going good, man. Things are good. Yeah. And often, Karen, they're not.
Yeah.
And there's a time and a place when to share and to divulge where you really are. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's better off to say, because you're not really looking for help from those other people. Yeah, David and I have a great relationship, and I will never judge him, and I never scold him. And a lot of people think that their doctor's going to scold them. That's not what we're here for. Our job is to continuously kind of assess where you are at. And if we get an honest feedback from you, we know, quite frankly, where you're at, because we get to know you well enough, and we know your habits, and just, we know more than you think. But when the honesty comes in and you start to feel and you get to hear about how the person is emoting or the habits that they're doing. So David shares with me today, he says, Doc, this is a new one. And he said, I'm not motivated anymore. Another way of saying not motivated is saying that you're starting to get some blues, maybe even a little depressed. And then we don't want to take these things lightly. People don't share that information, especially guys, quite frankly. So David, in this real honest moment, and David always knows when he shares this with me, I always say to him, I always edify him. I said, David, I appreciate your honesty. I'm not going to be any easier on you or change my tone. Yet I appreciate the honesty, because I can't really serve you if you're telling me everything is good and you're eating good and all this kind of stuff. So David knows he's been off track. And there's a couple parts of that. One part, everyone, make sure you're being honest with not only the people that are there to help you, okay, yet also with yourself. Because if you're not honest with yourself, you certainly aren't going to get the right help from other people. It just doesn't happen that way. And listen, we all go south. There's no way for all of us to always be on track and always super motivated. As much as it looks like it for some of us, that's not the scenario. And it's often very, very important that we have other people that are picking us up and helping us out and moving us in the right direction. So that's the first part. Well, in the midst of all this, David knows he's off track. David knows that he's drinking too much. He knows that he's eating when he's drinking. He knows all of these things, and he stopped exercising, all this stuff. For some odd reason, I say odd reason, but this is a very common thing. David then decides, after months and months of doing this, that he's going to see what the scale says. Okay, so he's going to test when he's at his worst. And I've talked about it here on the Health Made Simple show, that when people are at their worst, if I can navigate around not testing, I do it, because I know what the results are going to do. And it's almost like
they're not going to look good.
No. And if you emotionally can't handle a bad test when you're already down, then you got to be really, and I think that's part of our role as practitioners, to know, not just like, you don't just test everyone because you test everyone. There's some people you test, and then some people you do not test.
Yeah.
So David tested himself and got on the scale, and sure enough, he'd blown up like a stuffed pig. He's overweight. Yeah. And so it really bummed him out, because the evidence was, and I told him, I said, it's a damn good thing that scale almost broke, because if it didn't, you would be sitting here telling me, Doc, it's no big deal. I can do these things. Right? Look at that. The scale didn't change. So in that moment, I told him, I'm glad that thing almost broke. I'm glad that it stirred you up a little bit. Otherwise, I'm running out of things here to say. So anyways, then we decided, like, he's like, where do I start?
Yeah.
And so so I know his relationship with alcohol, his relationship with alcohol is that he's an entrepreneur, and part of his entrepreneurism is that he entertains constantly. So I knew that would be the biggest fish to fry, right? That would be the biggest bite. Now, he'd probably have the best results, but I also know it'd be the hardest step to take. The diet kind of ties right in there. Right? We could take small bites to do this as well. So I decided to go with the exercise, because I know that if I could get him to start exercising, to do something, he'd start to feel better. The fastest way to work on the blues is to get some endorphins rolling. Right. So then that was my primary goal. I want him to feel the results of doing something good for his body. So even to really chunk this down, Karen, I'll try to speed this one up, is that we decided, and today, as much as there's so many different things we do, the number one goal for him to report back to is that when he wakes up in the morning, his very first thing he has to do is put on his sneakers and shorts.
Okay.
And then determine what happens after that. But he can't put on his slippers. He can't put on his pajamas, nothing. It has to be workout shorts and sneakers.
Okay.
Start the rhythm, start the process in the brain. It's always starting is the hardest thing.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Anything starting is the hardest.
Always. And then once we have it rolling, it's easy
Yeah.
to keep momentum in anything in life. So, that was my big encouragement. And for those of you out there that might have stopped something, especially when it comes to exercise, because I several times said, when I stopped exercising, one was 2 years ago, one was 2 months ago, but nonetheless. So David had said, all right, we're just going to put on your shorts and your sneakers every day, and you're going to walk around until you figure out what to do next. Report back to me in 2 weeks. So a lot and a little bit of a visit there. Yeah, the takeaway there, the clinical insight is that, hopefully you do have someone in your life that is able to hold you accountable. I hold David 100% accountable for everything he says. Even though he's being honest, it doesn't mean I have to be like, I'm soft when I need to, but I'm always direct 100%. You don't want someone in your life that is just going to coddle you if you are putting part of your health in their hands. So the other part is you got to be honest with yourself and honest with someone else that can hold you accountable. That's a big part of it. If you look down you can't see your feet anymore because your belly's bigger than it's ever been. Really, that's like that, you got to be honest, like, man, I probably don't want that. It's probably not good for me, or whatever it may be. Right. So where you look and be like, well, I don't exercise, and you start rolling off yourself, proclaimed excuses. Or like my friend Liz there, who said she couldn't do any of these things because it didn't exist down in New Orleans. And lo and behold, there they are. And she's, whole new world for her. So that's the second one. And the third one, this is a clinical insight, and I want to share this because I want to kind of send it out for all our listeners. And this is about anxiety again. And this is probably, if I feel like every show we're talking about this, and it seems like we're going to keep talking about it. 3 cases just today, Karen, of young teenage girls, high school or first year of college, completely disrupted lives, on and off different medications. And I understand it because their lives are upside down. And in the conversation that kept happening today is, listen, there's nothing wrong with you. What happened was you just experienced something that no young woman or young male should ever have to experience over the last 2.5 years. You didn't know if you were going to school tomorrow. The time in your life which you should just be free willing it and just having fun and flirting with your classmates and do all this kind of stuff. You were worried about being too close to another human being. There's nothing natural about it. I pray to God we never visit that ridiculousness again, and hopefully we've learned the damage that we've done to these children. It fires me up. It does. So
I don't know whether we have learned, but I hope so.
I pray that we have, and to see these young women, and that's in this scenario, these are all young girls. Their lives are completely disrupted. They're not living anything like what young men and women did 15, 20 years ago. There's a total different experience, and not a good one. Yeah. So the good news is this. My same message was them for this. As often as you can, change the environment. If you feel the trigger coming on, if you're like at a concert or something like that, do everything that you can to prevent the event of like having a panic attack. And in all 3 scenarios, I understood because by the time they got into me, they had felt these things so many different times. They know when they're starting their body physiology is changing. And just a reminder with those, and again, I'm not treating anything, see your doctor, but definitely ask your doctor about using something called ashwagandha forte and kava. And just for those who Google out there and they're Googling kava and they'll see some things that says, oh, kava could be bad for liver. No, that's a synthetic source of kava. We use a water-based one, and it's a game changer when we use it. And it's really no wrong way to use it, but when it's used as a tool and a mechanism to help the body function better, essentially relax the sympathetic nervous system, it is one of those things that can be super supportive in keeping people out of the ER. And the beauty of when that happens, Karen, and this is the part I want to share, when we're able to then face that anxiousness or whatever it may be, we face it right and like, all right, here you come and I got you. Then that's the healing has begun. The moment that individual knows that there's something they can do about this, that's when the real healing begins. So the good news, I think in most, I think in 2 out of the 3 cases, the mom was there as well. So that was awesome.
Yeah.
So
nice.
their support, they heard the conversation, 2 of them will hear the same thing. And to know that this is winnable, it's not your fault. There's nothing wrong with you. This is not, something, that you're going to live with forever. This is a winnable situation. We just got to get you healthier and have the tools available so you can manage these particular situations.
Well, it's hard. And I mean, there's enough of that with teenage, girls, boys, without going through what we just went through the last couple of years, right? Enough teenage anxiety and other things.
Yeah, exactly. Without all of that. So I literally pray that we never have to face that situation again. It was an epic failure. These kids are healthy. They're, whatever. We beat that down for 2 years now. So the simple part of it is that it still exists, and it still exists a lot. So as the listeners are out there, listen, if you or someone as dealing with anxiety, doesn't have to be a young teenage girl, could be a boy, could be older for that matter. There are so many very effective, I don't want to say easy from the mechanics of how to help somebody. I'm not saying easy for the individual going through it. I wouldn't want to dismiss it like that. Yet for us as practitioners that are helping people that have these emotions of anxiety and have these emotions of blues and depression, that the systems and the tools are in place to be super successful, and usually in a very short period of time.
Yeah, love that. We've got a comment in the chat here. My lifesavers are kava and ashwagandha forte.
Beautiful. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, awesome. No, I think it's a good reminder. I think there's more people than just those 3 that are coming into your clinic today that felt anxious, right? Anxiety is rife right now.
It really is. And I think I had almost forgotten about it a little bit, Karen. Yeah, I think I'd forgotten about it a little bit, or thought that maybe it's one of those things that everyone's got under control. And then of course, I see a lot of new people and on a regular basis where I get to see the parents and they talk to me about their children, and and the poor parents who are dealing with their child and they don't know what to do.
No. Yeah, it's super tough.
I feel it through the parents' voices. Like, just please help my child. Like, my poor girl, my poor boy, they're going through these things, and the kids have a hard time articulating. They don't even know what it is, and then they get chased around with everything. And this is what really happened was, in 2 of the scenarios, they went through a litany of different medications and drugs, birth control to try to fix this, and
the medications sometimes work, sometimes are worse, right? Like,
well, in this one scenario, they're worse. And it's, so some people are very sensitive to medications in general. And if you're one of those individuals, often you can't take anything other than maybe a baby aspirin. Your systems, your nervous systems, and being hijacked doesn't work for your body. It creates a whole nother sequence of events. So in this particular scenario, one of the young girls was starting to take something to kind of calm her down, but she then went and she was like vomiting and having diarrhea for weeks at a time.
Oh my gosh.
Because of the impact on the nervous system. So, and it's so, listen, I'm not in college anymore, and my college was never competitive and never really was trying to get good grades, but apparently it's super, but apparently people do that. They really try to get good grades.
They strive to do well.
Yeah, they strive to do well. I was just trying to make sure I was fit for rugby. That was about it. So I never really had that same like competitiveness or anxiousness in academics, but a lot of them do. And I didn't realize how many of them do. And therefore there's this heavy emphasis to use Adderall and these other drugs. It's mind-boggling to me. And, you know, because the Adderall, you know, hijacks the brain and it takes a body that it could be wound up, and somehow, even though it's a stimulant, it calms it back down. It's like a double negative. It's kind of crazy what it does, but you pay for it later in life. You know, we know that now. But they're doing it for this short-term gain because of this anxiousness of falling behind or the fear of getting kind of left out, kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. I had people in college that did that.
Vicious cycle right there.
Yeah,
but nonetheless,
for sure.
so those are the clinical insights. And again, the beauty is that a lot of these people are seeking alternatives, and there are alternatives, and that's a beauty. That's one of the parts that I love about practice. And you know, I just went down to Orlando, had the opportunity to speak to a whole bunch of doctors, which was fantastic.
Yeah, tell us about that just before we dive into the next our next topic. Tell us a little bit about the weekend. Yeah,
so just real quick, you know, so I don't have any real huge takeaways because I was the presenter, right? So I kind of knew everything I was talking about. Yeah, this was my takeaway, Karen, that the room was packed with people that didn't need to be there, meaning that they're showing up on their weekends. They're showing up, taking their time away from their family and their friends. And that's why, you know, in their practice. So that's why I say, well, there's a lot of amazing people out there.
Yeah.
So not a single individual had to be there for it. There was no benefit other than their personal gain of knowledge.
Yeah.
And they are there taking time away. And I there's so many good men and women that are doing that nowadays that it's, you know, I want to applaud them all. If you're in, I don't care if you're a health coach or a, you know, a medical doctor, pharmacist, a chiropractor, whatever you are, and you're out there striving for more so you can help your, you know, your patients, your family, your friends, and your community more, like literally power to you, high five. There was one gentleman there, Karen, 88 years old. He's a pharmacist.
Wow. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. So it was a pretty mixed crowd, chiropractors, doctors of Oriental medicine. I think there was physician assistants, some naturopaths, pharmacists. So, you know, a little bit of mixed bags of everything. Yeah. All of them looking for alternative ways, the things that I teach here in the Health Made Simple show, of ways to just help them, not only themselves, but like just their communities. And so I was jazzed. I would say that, the energy was flowing through me. It was a good day for me. It was easier than I thought it was going to be. And partially because it was just, the room was full of just great people. So, so it was a win.
So yeah. Very cool.
Speaking for 8 hours, you might even tell tonight, like my voice took a beating, but nonetheless.
I bet it's hard to keep talking for 8 hours, but that's awesome. And that's great that there's going to be so many more people out there that have some tools to be able to help people with some of those things, because they're not very well understood right now.
Yeah. And for our listeners, I want today, many of my patients that came in were asking, well, what are all the technical stuff you were teaching? So listen, I teach the doctors the same way I teach everywhere. I keep it simple. And like, I really keep it simple. It doesn't benefit me to use big words for everyone or complicate things or lose their minds. I know enough about psychology where if it's understood, it's learnable. And if it's learnable, then we can repeat it. And if we can repeat it, then we can experience it. So that's really the whole, the concept of the Health Made Simple show is the same thing when I go and teach doctors. I keep it simple. And this weekend was perfect evidence that that's the model. Yeah. That diving into research. And I shared with them, said, if you guys really, really want the research, it's not going to happen this weekend. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about how getting clinical results trumps everything, really. I shared with them that I probably spend on any given week, Karen, about a half an hour, maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half in some weeks on PubMed, which is, big research. And it's awful. It's awful. I don't care what anyone says. It's awful. And if you're a headline reader, it's more awful because it's manipulative. So you have to read abstracts. So it's so difficult when people say, well, where's the research? They've never read research.
Yeah.
There's little tidbits here and there. So literally we just kept it simple. And it was fun. I made them exercise. I made them move. Heck yeah.
Yeah, why not? Hey, them.
You can't do that for 8 hours. Same concept. We talk about how to eat, how to move, and how to think. And That's the fundamentals of health. So the goal was, it was about long haulers. It was about all these, long symptoms that people have had since COVID. And we broke it down to really what was taking place. And I think we talked a little about this last week. So if you guys want to know what the real 4 causes of long haulers, what to do about it, we spoke to that last week. So I think it was received well. I think we got a lot of great feedback from it. And now there's some doctors out there that are more equipped to help their people, which is awesome.
Yeah, love that.
Awesome. All right, let's dive in. This is gonna be a fun topic. And if
alcohol, weight loss, other impacts. Where do we start?
Yeah. All right. So let's just start with this. Let's just talk about the difference. Well, we'll start with this. Let's for a moment here, we're going to talk about wine, alcohol, and others, and then whatever the alcohol is, and then we'll break it down a little bit. Are there a difference between, say, wine and a shot of vodka? Because there is. It's marginal, but nonetheless, because there's other things important. So there's 3 or 4 things, primary things, when it comes to weight loss, that's really important to understand. And I want you to second guess anyone who's ever told you that it's okay to use alcohol if you have a weight loss program or a diet program. I understand why they would say that, because they want you to like them better. But the truth is, alcohol
they want you to buy their weight loss program.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. They want you to buy their weight loss program. But yet, if you truly, your goal is to lose weight, and that's what we're going to hunker down right now. So let's just start with number 1. That when you drink alcohol, this is what happens. Your body stops everything that it's doing. Specifically, your liver stops what it's doing to then try to get rid of the toxin that you just put into your body called alcohol.
Yeah.
In a nutshell. I'm going to talk about how that. Yeah. So what that means to us for real, let's just say, Karen, that we've gone out to eat and I start with a glass of wine and then I eat. My body's only metabolizing the glass of wine.
Okay.
So now when I eat, when I have that food, and let's say it was good food, or it was the same amount of food. We'll talk about the amounts of food related to alcohol in just a moment as well. Now, when I have the food, your body stores it, because it is not going to digest it. It is not going to assimilate it. It's not going to metabolize it. So it stores it. It stores your salmon and your kale. And where do we store things? In fat cells.
Yes.
So that's what we know right off the bat from alcohol. So I can't tell you how many times, literally a week, I'll hear this. Well, all I have is the 1 glass while I'm making dinner. 1, I don't believe that. 2, it's usually about not a glass, it's like a jug. Right.
It's like a really big glass, like a fishbowl glass.
Again, I'm playing, I get it. And when we get to step or number 4 tonight, we're going to understand why that glass of wine is there. So when that glass of wine happens first, you stop right at that point. Everything you were about to put into your body now is going to be stored. So it doesn't make any sense that if you're trying to lose weight, because now you are storing rapidly everything from that point forth. All right. So and now there's some interesting things that happen here as well. So your body eventually, so in the liver is where it's going to get broken down. So what we do to try to eliminate, this is where it gets a little funky. So there's a couple enzymes, alcohol dehydrogenase, and then there's a couple others, but they're enzymes. So that's what I want you to think of. And then there's coenzymes, Karen. So when we drink alcohol, we have this stuff in our body that's a toxin. So your body has to bind it. We use things to go out and grab it. And these are these enzymes. One of the things that we use are the B vitamins. And the B vitamins are really, really important. That's with chronic alcohol users. Wine, doesn't matter which kind, beer, IPAs, doesn't matter. You deplete your B vitamins. They are used as coenzymes. So one of the most significant ones is, I believe it's the B3 family, which is called NAD. We hear a lot about NAD as one of the most profound antioxidants in the human body. And we have a very finite amount of NAD. That's your antioxidant. So if you're drinking and you run out of your NAD, now you can't detoxify. So you hold that alcohol until you start to restore that back into your body.
Yeah. Wow.
Fascinating, right? So when someone tells you a glass of wine a night, what happens is every single time you have that glass of wine, you shut down the metabolic activity. And I'd love people to challenge this, because really, if you put a toxin in your body, it's like when we talk about hormones, your body cares more about stress hormones and sex hormones.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Your body's more focused on releasing and getting rid of toxins than it is about getting in nutrients, because the toxins will kill the body. So when you bring in the alcohol, you shut down the metabolic system. So the challenge here is this, is how frequently is this happening? And this will all come together, and then you just make your best choice on what's important here. The more frequently it happens, the faster it happens, the more just it shuts down the system, because the body knows in advance what's going to happen. We think, well, that's kind of interesting. Does the body really know? Sure it does. It knows when it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we think, man, I'm gonna get my glass of wine. Your body.
And so then, is a more frequent one glass of wine worse for you or worse for weight loss than a big weekend or a big Friday night once a week?
It's a both. That's the answer to that. It's
both. Okay.
Yeah. It's a both. So when I talk about calories, which I'll do just in a moment, that'll help you understand. So in the meantime, that one glass of wine every single night, we're training the body to shut down at a certain time. Because when do you have that glass of wine? For most people, it's the exact same time of day every day. Yeah. And it's ritual. You literally start to think and feel differently at certain times of day.
Yeah.
So, right. So that's with or without the alcohol or the cookie or the cake or the dinner, whatever it may be. You just kind of get in the mood. You get in the mood to have a glass of wine. You're already there. Yeah. So these things are for real. So that's number one, is that once the alcohol enters the body, this could be wine, this could be vodka, it could be anything that you're drinking, does not matter for this first step, is that it stops everything you're doing and it'll focus on eliminating toxins first. And that's where you need this thing called NAD. And NAD has a limited supply. And once you run out of it, you stop your detoxification to some degree. You still have some of it going on. Now, some people say, well, I can go get myself an IV NAD, vitamin drip.
Sure.
Yes, you can. And you can get them they last for about 2 to 3 weeks, and they'll run you somewhere between low end $300 to $600 every time you do it. So if that's your answer, so be it. It would be an effective tool.
Okay.
It would help you to do this. Now, if you see supplements out there calling themselves NAD, I'm telling you to pause. I don't believe that they've got that down yet. There's a precursor they use called MNM. I'm still researching it myself, because if it truly is eliciting more production of NAD, fantastic. But until we know otherwise, IV, and it gets expensive. Yes.
Yeah. But then is that going to get rid of the negative effects on your weight loss journey if you did take the NAD? Like, it's helping with detox. Are you still storing the fat, I guess, from what you're eating?
The moment you go back to drinking, yes.
Okay.
So the NAD will help you detox.
Okay.
And will open up some
it won't be, you
pathways.
can't take the NAD IV and then drink a glass of wine every night, and that will...
No, it doesn't really negate that way. No.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that, Karen. And I'm going to get to reason number 3 when we talk calories in a moment.
Okay.
So, all right. Cool. So, but that's a good question. That's a legit question, because people are going to look for the strategies here to how do I still continue to drink? Like, how do I work this out?
Right. I feel like people ask that question. That's
and they're trying to, listen, I get it. I totally get it. And you'll understand more when I get to number 4 and understanding how and even the why behind it. All right. Number 2 is this. So when we drink alcohol, and this is I'm going to get a little nerdy on us here for a second here. When we drink alcohol, it goes into the liver. And again, we just talked about enzymes that are used to break it down. When they break it down, it actually doesn't convert to a sugar. It actually converts to something called acetate. And that acetate is then sent to the brain. And that is what your brain uses as a fuel source. So it's a little bit different than glucose. So your brain gets used to, the more chronically people drink, so repetitive drinking, and especially if there's heavy drinking here, your body gets used to having this acetate as a source of energy. So I want you to think of glucose. How we always talk about, there's sugar available, they're not going to use fat. Now take it one step before sugar. This acetate, now we're not even talking about alcohol anymore. We're talking about what it gets converted to. with this alcohol dehydrogenase. It gets converted with the NAD and everything. All of these enzymes break it down and produce something called acetate, which for the most part is toxic to the body, but the brain uses it as a source of energy. So the more you use alcohol, and this is where part of this, the feeling of addiction comes in, for you only can function with alcohol. Your body starts to rely on this thing called acetate as its source of fuel.
Okay.
So we've talked for years now about ketogenic diet and trying to get your body to get into the mode of making ketones, and your brain loves ketones. The brain loves sugar. The brain loves anything it can use for energy, but the cleanest fuel it will burn is ketones.
Yeah.
Acetate's probably worse than glucose.
Okay.
And when we drink, you're converting everything to acetate. When you run out of the NAD, now you can't even get the acetate out of your body. So for a lot of people, that the chronic drinkers who have drank night after night after night, and every body is different to volume, right?
Yeah.
So when you drink at night, you're constantly producing this acetate and constantly depleting your sources of NAD. So the acetate is found in the body even when you stop drinking, for sometimes days at a time.
Yeah.
So that means during that whole time, and I'm saying this because I know several people who said, I gave up alcohol for a week, didn't do anything.
A week. Yeah.
Yeah. And they say it didn't do anything. Now, and a lot of times because there's so much acetate and there's so much toxicity in the body that the body can't, it's the detox pathways aren't open yet.
Also, if you're saying I gave up alcohol for a week, you were drinking a lot before that. Like if a week without alcohol was the giving it up.
Yeah.
You're like a pretty regular drinker before that, right?
Yeah. You know what I've come to grips with though, and like terms with though, I don't think it's uncommon. I would say probably 50% of the population of these adults drink every day.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up in a household where it was just common when mom and dad got home, they made a cocktail.
Okay. Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I agree.
And I think it's normal. And I'm not judging. I think it's actually normal. I'm probably shooting low at 50%.
Yeah. No, you're probably right. Yeah.
Right? Just, a beer at the end of the day, a glass of wine, or whatever it may be. So there's that issue that's undeniable. So we've got two undeniable things, sitting here right now, where one, if you drink alcohol, whatever is in your belly or about to be in your belly is going to remain there, and it's going to be stored for later usage. If there's ever a later usage where you have to actually go, it means you're going to have to fast it out. You're going to have to stop drinking alcohol. Those are tools. Those are techniques, right? So, speaking to you, what if you just blow it out on the weekends? There's a math formula here. You can get it back out of your body in the event that you are skilled at fasting. The challenge is when you're drinking alcohol and eating not so great, right? What do they call them? This is number 3 here. We'll get into calories. I heard this term several times. Drunkies? Drunkies.
Yeah. Like the munchies.
It's like the monkey, the
munchies when you're drunk
together. So drunkies.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, come home after drinking, feel like eating. Yeah.
So, all right. Speaking of coming home and eating, and maybe not, and maybe
pizza shops, pizza by the slice, and you finished drinking, right? Like those shops are, they're the most busy.
I used to drink all the time, so I get it.
So did I.
And when people ask me if I drink now, I say no, I don't drink anymore. It doesn't serve me, and that's all I mean by it. Like I didn't draw a line, and I didn't have like a moment where I said, wow, man, I can never do that again. I'll never drink again. I didn't have any of that. It just stopped serving me the way that it once served me in my life. And again, absolutely no judgment. It hurt more. Like it hurt like when I drank. I didn't feel good. So, and if I felt good, I don't know that I would have stopped drinking. I don't know. So I don't want to be a hypocrite. But there's times I'm like, man, I'd love a nice cold beer. And I'm like, but I don't feel like crap.
Yeah.
So
the trade-off.
It's always a trade-off. So now we have those two things, right? So we're always going to slow down. It's not an if. If you're having a glass of wine with dinner, you're parking your dinner in your body. You're parking it.
Okay.
And because it's late at night, you're not going for exercise after a glass of wine and a meal, right? No. You don't like, have a glass of wine, cook a meal, eat a meal, and go for a run at 9. Like, you're not burning that stuff off. You're hitting the couch.
Yeah, I never did that.
You're hitting the couch and you stop counting. Like,
Yeah.
you only count that one glass of wine that you had because you only took one out of the cupboard. All right, so let's talk calories for a moment, because I get that question the most when it comes to alcohol. Dr. Bart, what is the best alcohol I could drink?
Yeah.
If there's only one, which one would it be?
All right, people say tequila. A lot of people drink tequila.
So let's talk vodka versus wine for a second here. So wine, yes, there's going to be more calories, and yes, wine has sugar in it, and vodka has none.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're only talking.
Does vodka have less calories?
Yeah, I think it's like 70 calories a shot of vodka.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, all right, so sounds good, right? Let's drink vodka.
But yeah, can we lose weight if we drink vodka instead of wine?
But what do we usually drink vodka with? Let's be real.
Yeah. Like cranberry juice. Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Vodka never has been my drinking choice.
So I don't know many people that just go to a bar and just do shots of vodka and then leave it at that. Maybe they do shots of vodka in between their other cocktails and drinks. So that's the part we forget about. So there's some interesting studies out there right now, Karen, and this is kind of funny and fascinating at the same time. So they've done a lot of studies on alcohol, and I'll throw out a couple potential benefits in a moment here. Potential. So yeah, there are some benefits, not the ones people think they're going to be though. There are some interesting studies that show that when people drink before eating, that they'll end up consuming anywhere from 200 to 500 more calories on average.
Yeah, I'm sure. Especially if there's like a something you can pick at, like a tasting plate or things that you can keep eating. Oh yeah, the bread, all that stuff.
So that's across the board where people consume more food. So when your answer is, well, can you stock up on the weekends? Not if you have added up, you drank 2 or 3 nights in a row, 500 calories at night alone. And then we talk about the morning after drinking. Are we looking for low caloric meals? Not even close.
Bacon,
right?
Eggs,
a stack
something
of
greasy. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the real things, because alcohol is inhibitory, right? Well, it breaks down our inhibitions, right? Yeah. So it makes us like, well, that's not bad. That looks good. I'll try that. I'll do that.
So if we did manage to drink vodka with soda water or something, and we didn't eat, does it have an effect on weight gain by itself? Well,
you're setting yourself up for a better situation right there.
Okay.
Yeah, but here's the other thing. So there's 2 things. So some people will tell me, and I get this one all the time, but Doc, when I drink, I'm not hungry.
Oh, yeah.
Until you're done drinking, and then you're starving. So for some people that drink alcohols, like
especially if it's like a beer, I hear people say that like more about, like, oh, I drank beer, and then
and they drank beer, and it'll curve their appetite, and this is what's really important to understand. It curves it. Yeah. And then when you stop drinking at the end of the night, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, that's when you hit the kebab shop.
Yes. So you're not hungry while you're drinking, and I agree. But what we forget is what happens at the end of the night. Rarely does anyone just drink for the entire night and not put any food in their body.
Yeah.
It just gets dispersed to the end when your body's full of alcohol, and then you put food into your body. No doubt about it, it's getting stored at that point. So there's an interesting part to all of this. So, well, let's just go to the calories for a second. It doesn't really matter.
So even like, what about, how there's like low calorie beer versus non-low calorie beer?
Because of the first 2 things I talked about.
Yeah.
The calories themselves, you're in the third, and when it comes to calories, knowing that when we drink, we're going to eat more. Yes, maybe you're saving yourself a couple calories here and there, but it's really the whole event that you have when you're drinking. Right. So it lets down our guard. So we tend to then be like a little bit more flexing with our food. Right. And that's part of the fun of it. Right. So like, I don't care, just whatever, just bring it on. And so that's a bigger part of it. And the fact of number 1 here, that once we drink alcohol, regardless, whether it's vodka at 70 calories and no sugar, or you drink a margarita, right? That might be, right, I don't know, 500 calories. A lot. Tequila, right? So again, tequila, margarita, This is how people interpret this. Hey, doc, you told me, they'll say, you told me margarita. I said, I didn't tell you margarita. I said, tequila might be a cleaner, more effective, I don't know, to tie your buzz on faster. So you drink less. I don't know. So maybe
tequila shots.
Yeah, do a tequila shot. You'll get a little buzz faster probably than vodka. I don't know. And then you won't have to drink as much, but it's still the event that does it.
Yeah.
So the event of drinking a glass of wine, and I'm kind of speaking to a lot of the people that I see on a daily basis, it's not the blowing it out on the weekends. It's the issue.
Yeah. It's the daily use.
Daily consumption, and teaching your body and training your body to use acetate as a source of energy for your brain.
Yeah.
And to know that every night at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, you're kind of hoping and looking for that moment. Let's speak to number 4 here. So alcohol is no doubt used initially as a happy tool. It is. So here's what's interesting. So although alcohol is a depressant, it starts off as an enhancement.
Yeah.
So it releases dopamine, very much like, sugar can do that, and fun can do that, and sex can do that, and exercise can do that, and drugs can do that. Alcohol can do that. And we can elicit this dopamine response. And so it makes us happy when we first started drinking, typically. At least that's when we first start. And then afterwards, we've seen some people kind of go, in the other direction as well. So the bigger question would be and I think this is a real question, that if you're drinking every night and the thought of giving up your drinking, you're having all these conversations and you're asking, well, what alcohol could I drink that gives me less calories? Or what else can I do so I can keep drinking my alcohol? But the focus is, you want the results of not drinking alcohol, but you don't want to give up your alcohol. What it's really saying is you don't want to give up your happy time. And I get that. It's real. So I'm just going to use this platform for a moment to say, listen, I get it. And I get it because when I used to drink, I used to have, that was like, that's what made the event of going out so much fun. Like we drink, and then, you change your personality and all that stuff. And in a moment, I thought, more confidence, all of it. And I used to think, man, that might've been a better version of Bart, right? Until I realized, and especially got feedback over the years going, no, that was not a better.
No, I don't know whether people are rarely a better version. If you're the sober one who's with these people, they're rarely the better version of themselves. Maybe if you're both drunk, then you think that each other are the better version. I'm sure I did at one stage, but when you're the sober one around people drinking, even a couple sometimes, I don't think they're as good a version often as they are.
So I want to give some kind of like tips and strategies here, or at least some conversation about the whole idea is that observe your relationship with alcohol, knowing that it's a toxin. And I get for some, it's a pastime. And I have friends and clients that are literally, purveyors of wine and fine wines and everything. Yet the idea of drinking it still makes you happy. So you might say, if it would feel so detrimental, you want even the thought of not having wine or alcohol in your life, you got to kind of look and say, well, what is it that you seek so much happiness that you're not getting? And what else could you replace it with? And I'll be honest, when I gave up alcohol, there was this situation where it wasn't the same going out.
Yeah.
Because I used to go out with alcohol. So that was the bridge to everything. So I had to find other things that became, that would that would be more enjoyable. Like whether I go out and see the sunset, go out for a walk with dogs, but you're going to have to find things that bring joy, because that alcohol, the primary thing that it's doing is bringing joy. So you should be able to go with it or without it. And I'm saying this, Karen, because I have people that literally will continue to drill me with questions to figure out how they can drink alcohol, because the thought of giving it up would be mortifying.
Yeah.
If not downright impossible. So, all right. So now let's talk about some strategies. If you're choosing that you're going to.
And are there any benefits? Did we talk about any benefits?
Yeah, there's some supposed benefits out there, and that's what they are. So, all right, I'm going to speak to my red wine drinkers first.
Okay.
So every now and then they say, well, red wines, Bart's from God's garden. I agree. I agree. You got me there. All right. So if you're drinking, if you drink red wine that's from an organic farm and ideally dry farming, And that's very similar to what we've talked about. The supplement company that I most often use, Standard Process, they use a dry farming technique, which means that they don't water all their plants and alfalfa and all the fun stuff that they grow. They let those plants, vegetables dive deeper into the soil, pull amazing amount of nutrients out of the earth, because only the strong survive. And then we get to eat all those, nutrients coming from the soil. The challenge is, Karen, here in our country, the soils are so beat up. That's even for the farming industry. They're using some pesticides and all that kind of crap. So if they're coming from organic farming and it's from dry farm wines, so the vines don't grow as fast. So it changes the fermentation process. So they literally end up with less sugar. So there's a company out there, and I have no affiliation to them, called Dry Farm Wines. Yeah. And it's cool. And they have less sugars and people can be on keto. So I'd encourage you to at least consider something like that. When someone says it's a really fancy bottle of wine, or this is a really good glass of wine, I don't know the difference. Yet I would say the same thing if someone said that about a steak. I would first say, is it organic? Is it grass-fed? Where does it come from? How's it processed? The same things need to apply when it comes to wine. Let's talk about what it depletes in the body. First and foremost, B vitamins get depleted. And they're water soluble, and your body will use up those B vitamins. And when you run out of B vitamins, you're going to run out of energy. And therefore you think you need to do things like snack more often. Your blood sugars will be out of balance. So this is a very, very common thing with anyone who drinks chronically. You always need to eat.
Big snackers.
Yeah, big snackers, no doubt. Yeah, it sneaks up on them. So we need those B vitamins. We use something called Cataplex B. You take literally 4 or 5 in the morning. So we're just trying to replenish, because every morning, most likely, you're going to be empty on those. So that's one of the things that you can do. Now, there's another herb that's in red wine that umpteen years ago, when vodka was coming on the scene real hard. It was always like beer versus wine, and then vodka was making this big push. Then they decided to make a push for wine being the healthy alcohol.
Yes.
Okay, and that was their push. That was their social media, if there was at the time. There wasn't, but that was their marketing ploy. Let's make it about this herb called resveratrol, which is in red wine. Now, resveratrol in super high doses and concentrations, used very, very frequently, has a phenomenal effect on anti-aging. It's amazing for our mitochondria. It helps a lot of the different detox pathways. It's a badass when it comes to herbs. I use it I use it with a couple other herbs called Herbivital. So there's a blend of different herbs, and it's fantastic. It's one of the just great, like, anti-aging, this is good for me group of herbs. Now, with that being said, the amount of red wine that you'd have to consume to extract a therapeutic dose of resveratrol is essentially not happening, because you would take on so many toxins that it wouldn't make any sense. So that argument's a pretty weak argument. Now,
there's probably better ways to get resveratrol, like you said.
Yes, like a supplement. Yes,
or other things, as opposed to
Now, interesting enough, there are a lot of studies out there showing that people who have a glass of wine here and there have less stress and less anxiety. And so there are, right? So because it breaks down those kind of like the tension that we build up. So there's some truth to that. They don't measure anything else in that, but those on certain measuring scales, they score pretty good. It's just like, if you give someone enough anything like drug or alcohol or something, say, how do you feel? I feel good. Right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's good for you. But wheeling this back to, and this conversation, as much as it wasn't really just about like alcohol good or bad for you, but it was about alcohol and weight loss specifically.
Yeah.
If someone's telling you, your doctor's telling you, it's okay to have it, they just don't understand. They just haven't read the science. They don't understand the physiology. They don't understand the biochemistry that's taking place when you put a toxin into your body. And especially when you do it later in the day, because that's when most people are going to drink alcohol. I don't think many are drinking first thing in the morning. And then you eat on top of that, what's going to happen metabolically? And the truth is, things are going to slow down. Things are going to slow down. And I hear it for a lot of my people say, I don't get it. I'm doing everything right. I'm eating right. I'm moving right. And yet they still have that glass of wine. Now, here's one other thing I'm going to throw out there. If you've been a chronic drinker of alcohol and you've slowed down, you can still have the same effects that you did before, because your body's used to that metabolic process. So, it'll just keep stretching it out, or maybe you choose to, eventually what I did where it just didn't serve me. I kind of think now that I learned all this, I'm kind of thinking I probably tapped out or needed to tap out on how much I was using and how much I'd actually, drank in a short period of my life. And it was probably good for me just to call cold turkey and be done. So, and listen, I do not regret it.
In the same boat.
And my friends and my colleagues that have known me for a long period of time, especially when I was a rugby player and all that kind of stuff, they're probably chuckling if they're listening to this right now. They'd be like, whatever, because it was such a big part of who I was and, my personality and all those different things. So I get it. If you literally right now, have a huge, wine cellar and you drink wine every single night, but you really want to take better care of your body and maybe you want to get back to an ideal health. And listen, the other thing about we forget sometimes about alcohol is the other impacts that it has. And I'll just throw these out there and I know we got a boogie here soon, but listen, there's research out there right now. If you're on hormone replacement therapy and drinking alcohol, you're skyrocketing your risk for breast cancer, women. Yes. Yeah. So there's legit stuff that you should be having so there's other conversations here that need to be had. Fat cells. If you have fat cells in your body already, when you increase alcohol, you block the pathway of getting rid of estrogen, Karen. So you end up having more free estrogen and estrogen stored in fat cells. So there's these compounding effects, and I don't think a lot of people are getting the honest answer. And I think that's really what I want to share, just kind of spread it, spread that kind of that information so we can make good choices. And if you choose to do it, here's some other strategies. All being said, you still have to be, if you want, you can't have more calories coming in on a regular basis. Let's assume they're all good from God's garden. Okay. We'll just make that assumption. And you're drinking alcohol and you have more calories on Friday and Saturday night. Somewhere over the next week, you have to have a deficit.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways
is things like fasting.
Yes. Incorporate intermittent fasting. I'm not saying this is the strategy, but for a lot of my clients that I work with, I talked about the you pay rule.
Yeah.
Meaning that, listen, if you're going to go out, just know the next day you're going to crave more foods, you're going to crave more crap foods, and let that day be the day that you fast it right out and go out for a walk, sweat some of this stuff out, hydrate, we will get a ton of electrolytes in, get your body, your lymphatics flushing, get the milk thistle in. Oh, that's the other one. Milk thistle. You drink at any level, milk thistle every day, tablet in the morning, tablet in the afternoon. That helps liver detox. And that is the pathway right there that'll support more production of glutathione and NAD. So that's the natural way to do it, because it'll support the detox and also support the way that your body, if you have any liver damage. So yeah, that's it.
Well, that was a lot. So that's awesome. And it's good to get the information, as you said, and then make an informed choice. It's not that you might never drink alcohol again, but at least you know some of the things that it might be doing to your body and some of the strategies that you might use in general with that. So what is going to be our one action item that listeners can take from the show today to move them towards their goal of becoming superhuman?
And it's to be honest with yourself and with the people that are working with you with your health. And I guess this can tie right into the alcohol too. So
and be honest about your alcohol drinking. Why are you enjoying it so much, or what is it about, or are you drinking one glass a night? Is it more than that?
And the beauty is that if you can be honest, it's so empowering. So, and here's why, and this is what I talked to Dave about earlier today. So, and I said, I appreciate the fact you're telling me the honest answer, not just saying, oh, it's good, it's always good, and just kind of giving me the shrug off, right? Because then when you do hunker down and make changes, you can celebrate because it is really good.
Yeah.
So it is important for us to be honest enough when it's not so good, we say, listen, I could be doing better. And when we're doing good, pat yourself on the back and celebrate and, give yourself a little credit for kicking some ass. So that's it. Be honest with you and yourself and with others.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We will be back same time, same place next week for another episode of the Health Made Simple show.
Awesome. Of course, appreciate and love all you guys. Keep doing your thing. Keep sharing it out. Keep spreading the love. You never know, right? When someone gets to hear something like this and maybe one of these little simple health tips really puts them on a path of being the best version of themselves. So keep doing your thing. Keep sharing out. Keep spreading a little bit. And of course, continue to take deliberate action for your mind, your body, overall wellness. Y'all be awesome.